Of Allah, the entirely abundantly merciful, the especially merciful, distinguished guests, most welcome to the joint session of His Excellency President of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, respected Dr. Mark, Secretary of Defense, and His Excellency Stoltenberg, Secretary General of NATO. Most welcome. At the beginning, we will listen to the recitation of the ayat of Quran. I seek refuge with Allah from the devil. In the name of Allah, the entirely abundantly merciful, the especially merciful. Hold tight to the rope of Allah and do not divide. And remember the favors of Allah upon you when you were foes with one another, and Allah put love in your heart. Allah put love in your heart. And by His favor, Allah made you brothers. And you were on the edge of the fire. Allah saved you. This is how Allah shows you His signs so that you will be guided. Peace is better. Indeed, without a doubt, believers are brothers. So make peace among brothers. Make peace among brothers. And fear Allah. Or in other words, be conscious of Allah. Be conscious of Allah. So that Allah shower His mercy upon you. Truth has said, Allah the Almighty. Making the prayer, Allah, accept our prayers. You are the best listener, and accept our repentance and shower your mercy upon us. Abundantly merciful, the especially merciful. First of all, distinguished guests, Your Excellency Secretary General of NATO, respected Stoltenberg, Your Excellency Secretary of Defense, respected Dr. Esper, Special Representative of EU, respected Roland Kobia, and distinguished core diplomat, ambassadors in Kabul, most welcome. Most welcome. Most welcome. Today in Kabul, your esteemed presence, support, and is a testimony of your continuous support to the legitimate system of Afghanistan. So let me once again thank you all. And at the same time, thank the respected political leaders, jihadi leaders of Afghanistan, and respected members of parliament, and all the distinguished participants. I'm grateful to all of you for joining us today in this August gathering. Is the symbol of national unity of Afghanistan and is the symbol of support to the system of Afghanistan. And I thank you all. Your Excellency, Secretary of Defense, and Your Excellency, Secretary General of NATO, we don't need any new agreements because we, with NATO and with our friendly country, United States of America, have security agreements which is done in consultation with the representatives of the people of Afghanistan and decided upon in the consultative Loya Jirga and has been approved by both the chambers of the National Assembly of Afghanistan. These agreements still remain intact. Respected Secretary General of NATO, respected Stoltenberg, I'd like to thank you for having always provided continuous and for having always supported the continuation of support to Afghanistan, particularly in the recent Ministers' Conference of NATO, for supporting, for equipping, and for training the Afghanistan National Defense and Security Forces until 2024. Serious steps were taken in that conference. Thank you very much. Your Excellency, Dr. Esper, Secretary of Defense, thank you very much for having considered Afghanistan an important country for the internal security of America, and you have emphasized on continuing support to Afghanistan, and that is not in short term. That has always been a mid-term and a long-term support towards Afghanistan. Distinguished compatriots and my respected brothers and sisters sitting here today, our friendly country, United States of America, in Afghanistan, for sustainable peace, a joint declaration is going to be announced. And with the implementation of this joint declaration, if Allah wills, in Afghanistan we will have permanent peace and stability, or it will pave way for the permanent peace and stability in Afghanistan. In this declaration, it has once again been emphasized on that the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, as a member country of the United Nations and based on the international laws, remain a sovereign, independent country. And the Islamic Republic government of Afghanistan, with the United States of America and with the international community, it has officially been recognized by the international community of the United States of America, Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, and NATO. And at the same time, United States of America, with them we have bilateral security agreements with NATO and United States of America, and they still remain there, meaning that the Afghanistan National Defense and Security Forces, with our international partners, we have our commitments there, and in the security and defense area, we will continue to have their support. I'd like to mention this important, that yesterday our Afghanistan National Defense and Security Forces celebrated their National Day. So availing this opportunity, once again, I'd like to congratulate their National Day to our brave soldiers. And I'd like to appreciate all the sacrifices they have given. People of Afghanistan, value your sacrifices, and the fact that we celebrated your National Day yesterday, our people celebrated your National Day. Your role in peace and your responsibility in peace will further increase, because it is you, Afghanistan National Defense Security Forces, who will be ensuring and maintaining peace. You'll be helping the affected people from the natural disasters, but at the same time you'll also be defending the land integrity of Afghanistan. And declaration, our relation with the international community, and particularly with the United States of America, will be based on mutual respect and mutual interest. And in this joint declaration, the current 40 years of war, we have agreed to solve that. And this solution by the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan and between Taliban as a result of negotiation will be reached too, and then we all together will be moving towards implementing it. Our negotiation team will represent the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, and it will be an inclusive team. Based on the agreement, in the last 1 week, we had reduction of violence. Well, some incidents happened, but again, fortunately, most of our compatriots celebrated or lived in a peaceful week, and this will help with Taliban through direct negotiations reach a permanent ceasefire. Government of Afghanistan, the agreement between Taliban and America, reduction in violence, which is a new term, and it refers to the ceasefire, and at the same time between the government of Afghanistan and Taliban for the the negotiation between both. I welcome the reduction in violence between America and Taliban, and I want the negotiation to happen between Taliban and Afghanistan government. There are certain points in this that will have to be looked at, and those issues will certainly be shared in the direct negotiation with Taliban. 2 years ago, people of Afghanistan experienced ceasefire and also experienced reduction in violence recently. Now, all the people of Afghanistan are looking forward towards a permanent peace and permanent ceasefire. We and Taliban should respect this very holy hope that the people of Afghanistan have. And at this point, I would like to say it with full clarity that all the points in the agreement between Taliban and America are conditional, meaning that they will only be implementable for Taliban to respect and implement all the agreement. Conditions are the number of, in the presence of the international forces, which will be dependent on to see if the other party respects the agreement or not, or how much it respects the agreement or not. For your information, I'd like to say the suggestion for reduction in the international forces was first made by me. I first made this because 94% of the operations are actually now run and planned independently by the Afghanistan National Defense Security Forces. This itself shows the capacity built of our Afghanistan National Defense Security Forces to a big extent on behalf of the people on behalf of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. Last year, to His Excellency President of the United States of America, to Mr. Trump, I wrote too, and I said that considering the fact that the capacity of the Afghanistan National Defense Security Forces is increased, Government of Afghanistan is ready for the gradual decrease of the international forces. And this will certainly help reduce the expenses of the United States of America in Afghanistan. Once again, on behalf of the people of Afghanistan, I'd like to thank member states of NATO, and I'd like to thank the government and people of the United States of America for their financial and military assistance. And now, with your permission, to our international friends, I'll say a few words in English.
Secretary Esper, Secretary General Stoltenberg, distinguished guests. The tragedy of 9/11 brought us together. Mutual sacrifice created human bonds between us. Mutual interest, your security and our freedom, sustains our relationship, and mutual respect has made us partners. The BSA and the SOFA give legal expression to our transparent relationship. NATO and US partners have spared neither blood nor treasure for attaining the goals of the partnership. We ask you to thank the veterans, especially the Gold Star families, for their selfless service. Our sacrifice has been immense, both in the martyrdom of the NDSF and our civilians. Children, youth in their prime, and men and women in all ages, in walks of life, whose lives were taken away by senseless acts of violence and terror in public spaces. may I ask you for a moment of silence in honor of our mutual fallen heroes? Today can be the moment of overcoming the past. Our people can mark it as the time when our quest for sustainable and dignified peace moved from desirability to feasibility and credibility, both for the living generations and the future generations to come. We, the people in the government of Afghanistan, and you, our international partners, are in full agreement and alignment on the need for seeking a political solution to the conflict with the Taliban. We have the political will and the capacity to make peace because of the resilience of our society, the dynamism of our economy, and the capability of our state. An indication of our resilience as a society is the return of over 10 million of our displaced population and refugees during the last 19 years. Around 4 million of them returning during the last 5 years alone. Free speech, expressed both through a vibrant media and social media, are features of our daily lives, and hold pride in it and make sure that it's protected. Our egalitarian ethos finds expression in national dialogue, with the tradition of Loy Jirga adapted as a mechanism of national discussion and consensus building. Our demographic profile, with 75% under 30, makes the country one of the young people. Our women, creative, dynamic, and strong, think and speak for themselves. We've become a true stakeholder society, discussing peace vigorously. Our inclusive, productive public discussion has turned the interrelated notions of constitution, republic, citizenship, and freedoms and rights into keywords in our social discourse and narrative of our collective identity as Afghans today. During the historic 2018 ceasefire, our society demonstrated the capacity for embracing the future, engaging tens of thousands of Taliban fighters in conversation, without a single incident of abuse, revenge, or violence. Our societal capacity for peace, tolerance, and forgiveness comes from our abiding belief in the injections of Islam. Our ulama have been champions of peace and our rights and freedoms. The alignment of views between the ulama and the women in the dialogue with Taliban has been truly inspiring. Our ulama created the enabling conditions for the 2018 ceasefire when 2,907 of them issued a fatwa urging peace and ceasefire. I therefore quickly ordered a ceasefire. The Taliban accepted. Thereby, we had a true feast celebrating the end of the month of Ramadan in 2018. Our private sector is engaged vigorously in peace. Today, they provide the necessary goods to every single district of Afghanistan. In 1990, people had to stand in line for hours to get a liter of petrol or some wheat or flour. We have demonstrated our political will and state capacity. The past 2 months, we embarked on an intense process of consultation with our defense forces, civilian leadership, and critical groups of stakeholders, responding to the directions from their commander-in-chief. Our patriotic forces changed their posture from war to reduction of violence within 5 days. We have organized our civilian capacity in all provinces equally swiftly. Relentless focus on reforms and a culture of acceptance of civilian leadership has been the key to building the capacity of the security sector. Defying predictions that the NDSF will not be able to fill the vacuum left by the departure of over 125,000 ISAF forces in full assumption of security by ourselves, we've gone from strength to strength, and thank you for the resolute support mission, and I salute General Miller and the previous commanders. NDSF's strength, functioning as the protector of our constitutional order and protector of the rights and obligations of their fellow citizens, gives us the confidence to pursue sustainable peace. Your ongoing support to the NDSF, Dr. Esper, Mr. Stoltenberg, during peace and war are essential to our freedom and your security. Our brave women are increasingly serving along the men in the NDSF. Peace has been an integral component of our vision and program of action for securing the future of our country as an effective state, unified nation, and prosperous country. End of 40 years of violence is the primary objective of our society. Peace is the process for achieving this objective, a process that would not lead to the stated objective and merely change the scale and scope of violence is therefore not likely to receive strong public support. Given the stated divergence between the Taliban and us, we need to agree to a fair and transparent process for reaching agreement and convergence. We are confident that we have a national consensus on peace. Our confidence derives from 5 years of intense consultation. The ulama, women and youth have convened national-level gatherings of stakeholders giving expression to their hopes and fears. The consultative peace Loijirga of 2019 brought all the stakeholders into a national forum. The 23 recommendations of the Loijirga have provided a platform for peace. Reaching here is required commitment and sacrifice of the NDSF, compassion for the suffering of every Afghan, conviction that the war must end politically, and courage to act on the conviction to opt for the road less traveled when reaching a fork in the road. A president, however, does not have the freedom of a citizen. A president has to act within the limits set by the Constitution, the source of his authority, hence assessing all recommendations to compliance with the Constitution, our national rule book. We need to acknowledge that we have yet to form a national consensus on the price of peace and the trade-offs. In the course of negotiation, the trade-offs and the price will become clear. The nation will then have to make a decision through the parliament, a Loijirga, or a referendum. Every Afghan citizen is a stakeholder in the peace process. To ensure inclusiveness, we will engage in an intensive round of consultation in the next 7 days on how to balance effectiveness, inclusion, authority, and capabilities. I would like to thank President Trump for his stewardship of the South Asia strategy and for engaging with us for reframing the agreement between the US and the Taliban. The current framework responds to the desire of our people for putting reduction of violence and ceasefire front and center. And I'd like to thank you, Secretary Esper, personally. The strong emphasis on a conditions-based approach is also welcome. We appreciate the willingness of the United States and our NATO partner to discuss the question of sanctuary provided by Pakistan to the Taliban as an armed group. Our agenda for discussion with the Taliban will be wider than their discussions with the United States. They should be ready to discuss their relationship with the state and non-state sponsors, a verifiable system for cutting off their ties with all transnational terrorist groups, their dependence and involvement with narcotics and other transnational criminal organizations positively. We have an exciting agenda for putting an end to 40 years of violence and joining forces to build an Afghanistan that every Afghan can be proud of and ensure the return of our refugees from Iran and Pakistan. Ending of violence will require regional cooperation and support. Our goal is to become a platform for regional and global cooperation. We thank all our neighbors near and far and call on Eurasia powers, especially China, Iran, Pakistan, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, the United Arab Emirates, and our Central Asian neighbors, to join us in the noble quest for peace and cooperation. I thank the European Union for thinking with us both the peace process and the immense work that will be required to implement and realize peace. I'd like to thank Germany and Norway for their offers. Let me conclude by thanking you for honoring us with your presence. I count on your support to help us create an even broader set of partnership for peace than those created for responding to the tragedy of 9/11. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
President Ghani, Chief Executive Abdullah, Secretary General Stoltenberg, Minister Khalid, distinguished guests, we join here today with real hope for the future of Afghanistan. Since the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001, the international community and government of Afghanistan have united together in the fight against threats to international peace and security. Along with our NATO allies and partners, we have committed to ensuring that Afghanistan never again becomes a safe haven for terrorists to threaten our homelands. Throughout this long war, we have worked closely with the government of Afghanistan to strengthen its security forces and develop the democratic institutions to chart a safe, secure, and prosperous future for this proud country. America and its allies have made tremendous sacrifices in pursuit of these goals, as have the people of Afghanistan. We honor our brave service members who have served here, especially those who paid the ultimate sacrifice alongside our Afghan security force partners. And we remember, as well, the innocent civilians lost in this struggle. The ongoing efforts to achieve a political settlement after many long years of fighting reflect a shared desire for a sovereign, unified Afghanistan at peace with itself and its neighbors. Thanks to President Trump's leadership, we are finally making substantial progress toward ending our nation's longest war. Today's release of the joint declaration between the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan and the United States marks a pivotal moment in the peace process. Our declaration acknowledges the deep bond shared by Afghan and U.S. forces and reflects our commitment to working together to achieve a sustainable, negotiated agreement that ends the war for the benefit of all Afghans. Central to this agreement are measures to prevent the use of Afghan soil by terrorist groups or other individuals who seek to harm the United States or our allies. Over the past week, we have observed a significant reduction in violence, which has created the necessary conditions for the United States to approve an agreement with the Taliban. This agreement, which will be signed in Doha shortly after this ceremony, paves the way for intra-Afghan negotiations to proceed so that a permanent and comprehensive ceasefire may be achieved. Afghanistan deserves a chance to enjoy the security and prosperity that comes from peace and stability. This will only happen if Afghans join together with one another to embrace this opportunity. We call on the Taliban to abide by their commitments as outlined in the agreement with the United States, to include maintaining the ongoing reduction in violence across the country. And as intra-Afghan negotiations progress, the United States will watch the Taliban's actions closely to judge whether their efforts towards peace are in good faith. If the Taliban uphold the agreement, the United States will begin a conditions-based, and I repeat, conditions-based reduction in forces. Concurrently, We will work with other members of the coalition to carry out a proportional reduction in troop levels. However, should the Taliban fail to honor their commitments, they will forfeit their chance to sit with fellow Afghans and deliberate on the future of their country. Moreover, the United States would not hesitate to nullify the agreement. Meanwhile, the United States and our international partners remain committed to our long-standing security relationship with the government of Afghanistan. For several years now, the Afghan security forces have been in the lead for providing security, and their effectiveness continues to grow. We will continue to provide them support as necessary to assist in their defense against internal and external threats to the sovereignty of Afghanistan. This is a hopeful moment, but it is only the beginning. The road ahead will not be easy. Achieving lasting peace in Afghanistan will require patience and compromise among all parties. But for the first time in many years, Afghanistan has a real path toward the future this country deserves. We look forward to the coming weeks and months with great optimism as we advance these important efforts to finally achieve peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellency Secretary General, please.
President Ghani, Chief Executive Abdullah, Secretary Esper, distinguished guests. I'm honored to join you all here in Kabul today to mark the start of this new chapter for Afghanistan. In a statement that we have just released, all NATO allies welcome this step towards peace. The agreement between the United States and the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan and between the United States and Taliban promise to end decades of devastating conflict and to pave the way for negotiations among Afghans as they begin to build a better future for all. This is a victory for peace and a victory for the Afghan people. Through their bravery and determination and the support of the international community, Afghanistan is a very different country today than it was in 2001. It is no longer a safe haven for international terrorists. Terrorists who conducted the attacks against the United States and threatened people across the globe. The security we have helped the Afghan forces to build has underpinned political, economic and social progress. Child mortality has dropped dramatically. Life expectancy has increased significantly. And millions more Afghans are in school, including girls. Today, we see women's participation at all levels and freedom of the press being expressed every day. 20 years ago, all of this would have been unthinkable. I have seen this transformation from despair to hope, driven by a deep desire for peace, in the eyes of every Afghan I have met. From political and military leaders to journalists and artists, and from special operation forces to female fighter pilots. The challenge now is to preserve these gains. The price of peace cannot be to sacrifice progress. Peace will only be sustainable if the human rights of all Afghans, women, men and children, are protected. NATO allies and partners will continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with the people of Afghanistan, as we have done since 2001. Over the years, under the NATO flag, hundreds of thousands of troops from North America, Europe, and countries around the world have been deployed to Afghanistan. Thousands of troops from NATO allies and partners remain in Afghanistan today to continue to train, advise, and assist Afghan security forces and Afghan institutions. Over the years, we have provided critical funding to support the Afghan security forces, and we will continue this funding. Thanks to our training and financial backing, the Afghan security forces have become stronger and more professional. And we will continue to support them as they build a safer and more secure Afghanistan. To support this process and to support the peace process, NATO will reduce its presence in Afghanistan step by step and conditions-based, reflecting the progress we see on the ground. NATO allies and partners went into Afghanistan together. We will adjust our presence together, and when the time is right, we will leave together. This will only happen when we are sure that the Afghan forces no longer require our support, and that Afghanistan will never again become a platform for international terrorists. The path to peace is long and hard, and there may be setbacks. We have already paid a high price. So I pay tribute to those who have served so bravely and sacrificed so much, in particular the Afghan security forces and the people of Afghanistan, whose strength and determination have laid the foundations for peace. And I say to the Afghan people, the international community stands with you. NATO stands with you. Now is not the time to waver or to jeopardize the progress made. The time for peace is now. So I urge all Afghans to seize this historic moment to build a truly inclusive Afghanistan and to unite in the pursuit of lasting peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellencies, we have 4 questions today, 2 from Afghan media and 2 from the international media who's traveled with the Secretary of Defense. Can I call on Thomas Geppinson from New York Times to pose his question? Thank you.
Thank you. President Ghani, could you clarify whether the negotiating team of the Taliban will include political parties and civil society or just government officials, as your spokesman said a couple days ago? And Dr. Esper, following the agreement, what is the threshold for the U.S. to strike back at the Taliban if they continue to attack Afghan national security forces?
Please go ahead.
With regard to any attacks on Afghan national security forces, we always reserve the right to self-defense and the right to protect our Afghan partners. We have to look at each on a case-by-case basis. I will rely heavily on the commander we have, the superb commander, General Miller, with regard to how we will act. And again, we will not take anything off the table. Our commitment is to this agreement and to the terms by which we agreed to implement it, and we are prepared to use force as necessary, but our hope is that all parties will abide by their obligations and commitments under this agreement.
Peace belongs to all Afghans. The team will represent the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan and will be inclusive of civil society, parties, and all walks of life. Will have a balance between generations and views.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Idris Ali from Reuters.
Thank you. Mr. President, so far your government has largely been left aside from the talks that are taking place in Doha. And there's a perception that the United States abandoned Afghanistan a couple of decades ago when the Soviets left. What makes you confident that the United States will not abandon you this time? And Mr. If I may,
of course,
Mr. Secretary, there's obviously a very fragile political situation in the country. President Ghani has said he won the election. Chief Executive Abdullah, who sits behind him, said he won the election. Are you afraid that the tense political situation may sort of scurry and destroy the deal that's been worked out?
My rule of thumb is to stay out of politics in the United States, so I'm going to stay out of politics in Afghanistan, too.
Well, first of all, may I make a correction? We've been in intense discussions with the United States. President Trump honored us personally by visiting Bagram. Secretary Esper and all leading members of the U.S. government have engaged us. Secretary Pompeo has repeatedly engaged us. To say that we have been marginalized, I think, is totally unfair. Two, as I stated in my written remarks, as a result of the engagement, after President Trump made his famous tweet, the conditions have changed very considerably. The focus, putting reduction of violence front and center, leading to a ceasefire, has been the reflection of the views of our people, the condition-based approach. We are fully aligned. We welcome this opportunity, and our engagement is based on mutual respect and mutual interest, and it will continue to do so, to be so.
Thank you. Mr. Moman from RTA.
Thank you. I'm from the National Radio Television of Afghanistan. My question is addressed to the Secretary of Defense and to the General Secretary of NATO. The people of Afghanistan are cautiously optimistic about the peace process because there are concerns about the implications of US troops withdrawals and other international forces withdrawal from Afghanistan. There is a real concern among the people that Afghanistan might, God forbid, return to the era of 90s to the civil war. So how can you assure the people of Afghanistan that such a situation will not happen again, that history will not repeat itself?
Well, I will say first of all that we are fully committed to supporting the Afghan National Defense and Security Forces throughout this process, as far as it takes and as long as it takes. We reserve all the rights of self-defense. We will retain all the necessary capabilities. And at the end of the day, this will be a conditions-based process. Again, a conditions-based process. The standard for me, for the United States, will be that Afghanistan, again, never becomes a threat, a safe haven for terrorists to threaten America or the homelands of our partners. And that means retaining the capabilities throughout this process to do just that.
In the statement that 29 allies agreed today, they reiterate their commitment to Afghanistan, their commitment to provide support, to provide training, advice and assistance, and to continue to provide financial support. So NATO and NATO allies and partners are committed to Afghanistan. And we have demonstrated that through 18 years of presence. And you have to remember that we are in Afghanistan to help the Afghans, but we are also in Afghanistan to help ourselves. We are in Afghanistan because it is in our security interests to provide, to prevent Afghanistan from once again becoming a safe haven for international terrorists. That's the reason why we are committed, and that's the reason why any withdrawal, any reduction of force levels will be conditions-based. We have adjusted before. Not so many years ago we had 130,000 troops in a big combat operation. Now we are 16,000 troops in the NATO mission. Showing the strength of the Afghan security forces because they are now in the lead of the security in this country.
And the last question we have from Nexot Tolo TV.
تشکر. من خالد نگزاد هستم از تولو نیوز. سوالی است که همواره حکومت افغانستان، ایالات متحده آمریکا و ناتو وجود داره که فعالیت میکنه و او را یک تهدید شمرده. پس از اینکه با طالبان توافق میشه بالاخره سرنوشت مبارزه با گروه‌های دیگر عراق افغان چگونه خواهد بود؟ آیا طالبان، ایالات متحده آمریکا و حکومت افغانستان یک جا با این گروه ها مبارزه خواهد کرد چگونه؟
Yes, that's a very important point, and it deserves clarification. We will continue our operations against terrorist groups such as ISIS-K to ensure they are not a threat to U.S. forces, to partner forces, or to Afghan forces or the Afghan people. Those operations will continue.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It concludes here.